Hashem na'aseh v'natzliach, MESILAT YESHARIM. The Ramchal, we finished finally chapter number 19. Now we're talking about the balance of being a chosid. Chasidut is not a first glance superficiality. The Ramchal is the antithesis of, he hates with every fiber of his being superficiality in Chasidut, like just, doing extremely dangerous and painful stuff, fasting the whole day and night without any motive or meaning, Ela sarich li'iyun, it needs introspection and contemplation, because also what the outcome is, you understand? A Chasidut that's going to make Judaism and yourself look ugly and turn people off is not the right way to go, unless you're in the middle of the forest. You understand? We always have to see this path that we're going. How is it going to affect? It's like economics. There's always the micro and the macro, You can't just be in your little bubble and say, oh, I'll do whatever I want and let whoever wants to, all my kids and all my brothers and sisters and community get turned off just because I want to be selfish, You have to, it's a very, sometimes on the surface at face value, it may seem that, this act of Chasidut you're doing is good. But since its ripple effect is going to have bad consequences, and we said that this part of the MESILAT YESHARIM is Chasidut. See, there's a fundamental difference here. And I think it's worth it to dwell upon this, because the Ramchal is a very deep sefer. Fundamental difference between being a tzaddik and a chosid. Tzaddik is the halacha. Halacha we can't play games with, which means if you put tefillin in the middle of, for lack of a better example, you have to put tefillin in the middle of an airplane, or else you're going to go a day without putting tefillin. Too bad, too sad. We don't care about the concept. You know what I'm saying? Because just because, the goyim may get triggered, we don't go and, not do a mitzvah. But Chasidut is extra credit. So, you understand? A person can't have tunnel vision and be like an ant. We always have to see the global ramifications, you know what I mean, of our actions. So once it's Chasidut, I'll give you a very beautiful example of this. Rav Sternbach, he should be Shlita, one of the greatest of the poskim of our generation, brings that the Arizal, many times while his mother was alive, even though everybody knows, to learn Kabbalah, you need to be totally pure and go to the mikveh constantly, right? But the Arizal, and anybody, have you been to his mikveh? It's freezing cold. But the Arizal, that's only Chasidut, right? Nowhere in the Shulchan Aruch says you need to, right? Actually, I was telling one of my students in detail today, I spent 10-15 minutes. It's always to know the three levels. Deoraita, Derabanan, Chasidut. And the further we go to Deoraita always overrides the Rabbanan 95% of the time, right? And we have to be more scrupulous and meticulous and flawless in our Deoraitas, right? Deoraita always, usually 95% of the time, overrides the Derabanan mitzvah, right? And Derabanan would always override Chasidut. So the Arizal didn't used to go to the mikveh because it would pain his mother that she would think he's going to get sick. It's freezing cold in Tzfat. It's the middle of the mountains, and the water is cold. So the Arizal brings, that's a classical example that to pain your mother is midoraita, right? To go to the mikveh is only the Rabbanan. So obviously, what overrides that? The right. Everything is like a pyramid, everything is like a hierarchy. And just like, a silly rabbi that has 10 congregants and only knows like 1,000th of Rav Ovadia can't really critique Rav Ovadia and argue on him, right? Right? It's like an army. We Judaism, like the Lubavitcher Rebbe and throughout the Torah, it says we're like an army, right? You're going to get court-martialed if a captain tries to override a 4-star general or admiral, right? So We Jews have a litmus test. We have a consciously and subconsciously, we know who the Gadol Hador is. So, you need to know your place. So same thing here. You need to know the place. I mean, this Hasidut may be a very beautiful action, but also don't get lost in the trees. Look, you need to sometimes have an eagle's eye view on how's this going to affect your children and maybe even yourself. Like, for example, I tell you, Amirat Hasidut, I think the case of the Arizal, Rav Shimon Akbar, is very, very classic. Like, you may do Amirat Hasidut, it may burn you out and, put your life in danger, jeopardize your immune system, For example, if you know for a fact that it's very, very dangerous for you to not get sleep at night, and you which means like this. Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky says this, right? 2 nights a year we Sfaradim stay up, right? Night of Hoshana Rabbah, Shabbat Arava, not Shabbat Araba, Shabbat Arava, right? And Shavuot. But let's say somebody, Chas v'Shalom, he's weak, you have to also know, like, we can't broad brush everybody. Everybody's immune system and personality and physical biology is different. So let's say somebody, if he stays up Shavuot, the whole 1 week he's going to miss yeshiva. Of course he shouldn't. That's a good example of this. Staying up Shavuot night is Hasidut, right? Nowhere in Shulchan Aruch says that. I think it's about time we don't be Iranians had a very pure heart and very outstanding and above average Yirat Shamayim, but a lot of the things they did was not based on pure knowledge, right? So it's come the time that we know this hierarchy, right? What's the Oraita? That takes the most precedence. That's the most chief and cardinal, right? Then the Rabbanan, then you go Chasidut, okay. And he says, the Ramchal even goes another step. He says, don't think if you do a Chasidut that's going to turn people off and have wrong consequences, that Chasidut becomes a sin. Perfect example I gave you is like Shavuot. How does that make sense? Stay up 1 night and not learn for a week. It's like counterintuitive, right? It's counterintuitive. So, here's another, he gives an even a better example than I was giving. He says, like, for example, Gedalia ben Achikakam. Right in the beginning of the year, literally we scratch the surface of the new year, we start fasting. Why? Over the great tragedy that one of the greatest Sadiqim, the remnant, the governor of the Jews, Gedalia, a tremendous Sadiq, was assassinated. Why? Because he was too naive. They told him, Yishmael, it's sad. A lot of people are like Korach, right? That rebelled against Moshe. Some people, they're willing to sacrifice this world and next world because they're narcissistic. They have this tremendous obsession with power, They want to be in charge. I'm the boss. So Gedalia was warned. His ministers and his cabinet said, hey, his close students said, this guy Yishmael, which was a Jew, is your rival. He wants to assassinate you. Maybe you should take precautions. He said, no.
Because of Lashon Hara.
It's Lashon Hara, and I'm judging him favorably. You guys are... I mean, again, this week's Parsha, we don't have time to talk about the Parsha because I want to talk about Purim, but more important than fearing God and learning Torah, the basic ingredient in life is common sense, right? Once you have common sense, then you could learn Torah and have a lot of fear of Hashem. But like we say in Farsi Nadari, Jundar Azabe. So again, Gedalia made a big fat mistake. Being a tzaddik means being realistic, being worldly, not being in denial, right? Gedalia wanted to kill him. It was not the time or place for Gedalia to judge favorably to a Rasha like Ishmael, right? And he should have, because me and my wife at every night dinner table, entire family watches like a 2-minute clip from the Chavetz Chaim from the Laws of Lashon Hara. It's actually really good. You're allowed to listen to Lashon Hara to prevent damage, right? Unless you, which means we could get concrete evidence, but immediately you should be worried that perhaps if this is true, you're going to get really, really, really in danger. So if you look in Yirmiyah chapter 40, it says that he gets really mad at his subordinates, Gedaliah, and he says, "You guys are saying lies about Yishmael, and what caused this? Well, his naivety and not using common sense and not following the Allah and trying to be too chassid, right? Caused what? For him to die. And it caused even the last remnant of the Jews in the Holy Land to also be dispersed, which is sad because it's very important for Jews to always be part of the Holy Land. Oh, wow, this is a scary thing. Right? To reiterate, the Ramchal says when you do inappropriate chassidut, which causes damage, so not only did guess what? His naivete caused Gedaliah to get punished, and all the people that died because he miscalculated it, it's like Gedaliah killed them, not Yishmael. Wow. Leaders need to be strong. It was, it's very simple, guys. Everything has a place. Even Lashon Hara has a place sometimes. You have to listen to it and take preventive actions. And that's why it says in Yirmiyah chapter 41, these are the people that were attacked, were destroyed in the hand of Gedaliah. Gedaliah was such an innocent, but right? Since he wasn't with the program, Gedaliah, and he didn't take preventive measures, and the same thing in the second temple, there was a big rabbi that was going way, way out of line and being way too Hasidish, way too pious, and not going with common sense. His name was in the case of Bar Kamsa, like it says in Gittin, page 56, his name was Rabbi Zachariah ben Avkulos. The Gemara says he actually destroyed the temple, this Rabbi Zachariah. Because a lot of times, what was the story there? Kamsa and Bar Kamsa, basically, what happened is, right, he got embarrassed in public, then he went and told the Roman general, the emperor, Caesar, that the Jews don't accept you. So he said, how do you know? You're lying. He said, okay, send me a thing, send me a very precious calf, and let's see they bring it as a korban. So on the way, he nicked its lip. So the Chachamim said, in order that the Caesar shouldn't, cause a Holocaust and kill us all, even though usually we're not allowed to bring blemished animals, in this case, it's an exception to the rule. Then thing kept on saying, no, then all the Jews are going to think, from now on, we're allowed to bring blemished animals. No. For Shalom, you're allowed to do a lot of stuff, right? And he kept on having, which means, the idea is very deep, guys. When you want to go above and beyond the law, you have to be dead sure that you're doing more good than bad, right? You're trying to go above the letter of the law. So if by you going above the law, it destroys the whole law, then you know what I mean? You've just, everything is upside down, tipsy, And he says, then they said, okay, let's kill Bar Kamsa. Then he said, no, perhaps people will think that whoever causes blemishes in animals has the death penalty, right? He kept on going on not using common sense. And in the way he went and did Malshin, you know what Malshin is? Yeah, so Bar Kamsa went and tattletaled on the Jews, and he caused the whole Jewish nation to get destroyed by Rome. And that's why the Gemara says the humility, which is usually the crown jewel of all good traits, his humility, since it wasn't properly calculated and balanced, and it was a nonsense chassidut, caused the Beit HaMikdash to be destroyed. So again, you got to be very careful. So he says this is probably the most golden and diamond platinum example you could bring. How where when your chassidut isn't, you don't look at the bigger picture as an eagle eye view. Where is this? How is this small calculation I'm making in chassidut to try to be super careful in something? If it's not balanced, where is it leading? Well, basically it led this first Beit HaMikdash, the last governor, the last stand of the Jews after the first temple was destroyed. At least they had a Jewish community after the exile of Babylonia. That was destroyed. And the second was destroyed. So he says, you really, really, and probably, with all due respect to this great rabbi, Rabbi Zachariah ben Avtilus, I know he didn't want to destroy the Beit HaMikdash, but he probably should have listened to his colleagues, One has to have a sharp ear and accept that you may be miscalculating. That's why everybody needs a Rebbe. That's why everybody needs to, not be so obnoxious. And see that, perhaps you always have to be willing to look at the other side of the story, That's why he says like, just like a diamond, you have to look at it from all angles. The Ramchal says also Chassidut is a diamond, but look at it at all angles because it needs to be flawless. If your Chassidut can't have any destructive consequences. If it has destructive consequences, do not do it. Because it's extra credit anyways, right? It makes no sense, like the Shavuot kid, right? It makes no sense to have Chassidut like Gedalia and let yourself and the whole community be killed by a ruthless dictator named Yishmael, right? Or it doesn't make sense for Rabbi Zachariah ben Avkilus to be so pious to not kill Bar Kamsa. Bar Kamsa is the sworn enemy of the Jews. He got blessed in public. He's on a vendetta to mess over, right? So Hashem should help us that whenever we want to go above and beyond our call of duty, sometimes it's gorgeous, sometimes it's beautiful, but it has to be very calculated and balanced. And you always have to see what the end game is. If the end game is taking you somewhere near a dangerous area, stay far, far, far away. It's not worth it to do the chassidut.